Hello everyone and welcome to our next sequence activity. I don't think we have done one of these together yet. This is called a pixel art. So you are going to get your own copy, and for each of these questions you plug your answer into into the box, and if it's correct, a picture will start to show up on the grid next to it. If it's not correct, nothing will change. So, for example, for the first one, it says find the first term in the sequence. So we have this sequence 2, 8, 32, 28. Well, our first term is the first one, which is 2. So we just type 2 into the box, and we'll notice some pictures, some colors start to appear. I want to show you that up in the top corner, we see a percentage, so you can zoom out and see how the picture is starting to appear. You can see how big it is, and then you can zoom back in to look at the problem to do work. Okay. So the next one says find the third term. So 2 is the first term, then 8. Our third term is 32. So we just plug in 32, and we see more of the picture appear, so we know that that's correct. The next one is looking for our common ratio. So how do we go from 2 to 8? And we're looking at geometric sequences, so we're thinking about multiplication. So 2 times what gets us 8? 2 times 4 is 8. 8 times 4 is 32. 32 times 4 gets us 128. So our multiplier here is 4. Beautiful. The next one says find the third term in the sequence. So we see it goes 1, -3, something, and -27. So how do we go from 1 to -3? Thinking of multiplication. So the only way to get there is by multiplying by -3. And then we use that same common ratio. So what is -3 times -3? A negative times a negative is a positive. 3 times 3 is 9. Beautiful. And you can again zoom out. Oh yeah, we see colors are starting to appear. Our picture is coming to life. The next one says find the fifth term. And it's the same sequence. So we have our first, second, third, and fourth term. So now we're taking that -27 and we're multiplying it by our common ratio of -3. And maybe you don't know what that is. I have my calculator open. -27 times -3 gets us a positive 81. Beautiful. So there's our first 5. And you can scroll down. I'm going to scroll down to the next 5. Perfect. So what is our common ratio to go from 1 to -3? Of course, we know that is a -3. Beautiful. Find the third term. Ooh, okay. So we have 1/12 times something, and that gets us 1/2. Well, when we multiply fractions, remember we multiply across. So 1 times 1 is 1. 12 times what is 2? This must be reduced. So this fraction of 1/2 must be reduced, so it becomes a little tricky. So what we can do, excuse me, we can also look at different terms in the sequence. Like here we have an 18 to a 108. When it's a sequence, that ratio is going to be the same for every pairing of terms, right? Every term in the one right before it. So we can go into our calculator and do 108 divided by 18. And we get 10. Wait, I typed that in wrong. 108. There we go. We get 6. So we're multiplying by 6. And let's see how that would work with our first one that we were looking at. If we had 1 over 12 times 6, or 6 over 1, 1 times 6 is 6, 12 times 1 is 12, and 6 over 12 can be reduced to 1/2. So with fractions, it can be a little tricky to find it. So remember, you can always look at the next term to see if there's an easier multiplication pattern happening. So this one we got is 6. Oh, sorry. The multiplier is 6, but it wants us to find the third term. So we have to do 1/2 times 6. 1 times 6 is 6. 2 times 1 is 2. 6/2, or 6 divided by 2, is 3. Beautiful. That's a little tricky one. A lot going on there. So we know our common ratio is 6. So we have the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 terms. So to get to our next one, we want to do 108 times 6. 108 times 6 gets us 648. Beautiful. Our common ratio we already identified was 6. And now the next one says find the third term. So we're starting with 3,200, then 1,600, then something, then 400, then 200. So we can see these numbers are getting cut in half, right? I definitely see it big going from 400 to 200. I know that that's half. So to find this question mark, well, what's half of 1,600? 1,600 times 1/2 is 800, or same thing as divided by 2. We get 800. Beautiful. And now we have the first 10 done. All right, clear it out. Scroll down to our next chunk. And you can zoom out and see how it's looking. Ooh, maybe you can tell what the picture is. I'm not sure yet. I'm going to zoom back in. And there's 21 in total, and we're on number 11. Okay. Find the 8th term in this sequence. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here's our 5th term. And our scalar, we noticed, was 1/2, right? Our common ratio was 1/2. Half of 200 is 100. Half of 100 is 50. That's our 7th term. So half of 25, or half of 50, gets us 25. That's our 8th term. The next one's looking for a common ratio. So how do we get from 1 to -4? We multiply by -4, right? It's the only way through multiplication to get that. And if you weren't sure, you could go, well, what's -4 divided by 1? We'd get -4. Or what's -64 divided by 16? -4. Any two terms we can divide as long as they're right after each other to find that common ratio. Given a sequence where the first term is -2, and so we're starting with a -2, and the common ratio is 5. Find the 4th term. -2 times 5 is -10. -10 times 5 is -50. -50 times 5 is -250. So that will be our 4th term. So we just multiplied by 5 4 times. Beautiful. Given a sequence where the first term is 64 and the common ratio is 1/2. Find the fourth term. Well, half of 64 is 32. Half of 32 is 16. Half of 16 is 8. So our fourth term here will be 8. Beautiful. When you're ready, scroll down. We'll start looking at number 15. Beautiful. So this says our first term is 3/4, and it wants us to find if the ratio is 4. Well, the second term, 3 times 4 is 12. 4 times 1 is 4. 12/4 is 3. So there's our second term. Our third term is 3 times 4, which gets us 12. And then we do 12 times 4, which gets us 48. So it looked tricky with the fraction, but we got rid of that fraction actually kind of right away. In a geometric sequence for the next one, if the first term is 5 and the third term is 45, what is the second term? So 5 times the ratio again gets us 45, right? Because we're multiplying it once to get our second term and then again to get 45. So if we were to solve this, we could divide both sides by 5, opposite operation, and r times r, or r squared, is 9. So what did we multiply by twice that got us a 9? Well, that is 3. Oh, that's our common ratio. That's not our answer. So if we're multiplying by 3, what is 5 times 3? Well, that is 15. Beautiful. And then 15 times 3, 45. So we see that it works for that. The next one says, so we have 4 terms. We know the third term is 30 and this term is 10. What is the second term? So how are we going from 30 to 10? What is that multiplier? It doesn't look simple. So I go to my calculator and I'm like, well, what's 10 divided by 30 as a fraction? Oh, it's 1/3. So 1/3 of 30 is 10. So to go backwards, instead of multiplying by 1/3, we multiply by 3. 30 times 3 is 90. And you can check that and make sure it works. And because if we start with 90 and multiply it by 1/3, 90 times 1 is 90, 3 times 1 is 3, and 90 divided by 3 is 30. And there's that term right there, so it works. In the next one, it says the third term is 30 and then 40. Find the first term. So we found the second term was 90, right? Yeah. So to go backwards, we multiply by 3. So 90 times 3 is 270. Beautiful. 3 more here. Alrighty. So for this next one, in a geometric sequence, the first term is 12. And the common ratio is 2. So what's the fourth term? So times 2 gets us 24. 24 times 2 is 48. And the fourth term will be 48 times 2. 48 times 2 is 96. Beautiful. You got 2 more here. Try those last 2 to get that picture nice and finished. We're almost there. You got this, friend. Try those last 2 there. You got it.